Hello, Wonderhussy here at the base of the mighty Sierra Nevada mountains. This is a part of the John Muir Wilderness area called Tuttle Creek Canyon. And the reason I'm here is I'm planning to hike to an abandoned ashram. Okay, an ashram, A-S-H-R-A-M, is a place where people go to meditate. And typically you hear about ashrams in the Himalayan mountains, you know, like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, you know, hitting on Mia Farrow and the Beatles all hanging out at the ashram somewhere in India, probably in the Himalayas. Well, I don't know why they always put ashrams up in the mountains, but they do. And there's one right here, not far from Mount Whitney. Anyway, that's the deal here. A couple built an ashram up in this canyon, oh gosh, almost 100 years ago. And believe it or not, it's still here to this day, only it's long abandoned by that couple. They passed away and their followers. But you can still hike to it most of the time. Now I say most of the time because, well, you might see there's still quite a bit of snow up in the mountains ahead of us. But down here where I parked, whew, it's hot. It's like 90 degrees. So that snow is melting fast. And as a matter of fact, this whole area is talking about this, the Eastern Sierra. They're calling it the Big Melt. All that snow way up there at high elevation has started melting, and then all these little mountain creeks and streams are just gushing with snowmelt. Now you can't see it because there's all these trees covering it, but that's Tuttle Creek, what this Tuttle Creek Canyon is named after and what this Tuttle Creek Ashram is named after. I'm not sure we're actually going to be able to get to the ashram because right at the very end of this hike, I guess there used to be a bridge to cross the creek to get to the ashram. And because of all the crazy snow they had this past winter, well, I think an avalanche tore out the bridge. And because of all the snow melt, the creek is supposed to be very deep and swift moving. So I don't know if I'll be able to cross the creek and actually get into the ashram. But I figured I might as well try. And if nothing else, I'll get an amazing workout and enjoy some spectacular scenery. But it is hot and it is steep. It's not a long hike, maybe only about a mile, 2 miles, but it's really steep. I think you gain like 1,500 feet in elevation. So I guess I better just shut up and start hiking. Wow, you can see here something came rip-roaring down this trail and carved a huge channel. More evidence of the Big Melt. I mean, you can see by what happened to this road that there's been plenty of water coming down off these mountains. So yeah, I don't know about crossing this creek. Now you can see we're basically hiking along what looks like it was probably an old Jeep road. So I'm guessing you used to be able to drive all the way up to this ashram. And that makes sense because otherwise, I don't know how they would have lugged all their building materials up there. Now, granted, they did use a lot of the local granite to build this building. It's supposedly amazing, all built of stone, really picturesque. But I'm sure they still had to haul some supplies up here, like nails and tools and ladders and stuff. And I can't imagine them packing all that on foot. Although you never know. I mean, the couple who built this ashram were the heads of a sort of spiritual, well, I don't want to say cult because they didn't do anything bad, but you know, they had followers. And so, well, you know how it goes with those yogis and their followers. The followers do all the hard work. So maybe the followers had to pack all that stuff up here on foot. And they were probably told something like, oh, don't worry, every drop of sweat brings you closer to nirvana. You know how it goes with those. Oh gosh, I keep wanting to call it a cult, but I mean, I read about the guy and his wife who built this, and they seemed like nice enough people. It was a guy named Franklin Merrill Wolf and his wife, whose name was Sarah, but I guess she started going by the name Sharifa. That was her, I was gonna say cult name. I gotta think of a better word. Spiritual name. We'll just call it her spiritual name. Anyway, Sarah, aka Sharifa, and Franklin, and I don't think he had an AKA, they were the leaders of this spiritual following. And I guess they were called to this area precisely because the mountains are so high. Apparently there is something to that theory of, you know, the highest places in an area being the most spiritually in tune. Anyway, I guess the wolves, Franklin and Sharifa, identified this site somehow. They came out here, they fell in love with the landscape because how could you not? And they decided that this was the place that they needed to start their spiritual practice. And so I guess at first they camped out somewhere in the area by what's today Whitney Portal, which is the way up to the Mount Whitney trailhead. But after camping for a while, they decided they should build some kind of summer school, I guess, so that their disciples or devotees or whatever you want to call it, the people who followed them, could come up and meditate. So beginning in, I think, 1928, they leased some land from the National Forest Service and decided to open a summer camp. But I guess when they checked with the Forest Service to make sure that would be okay, the Forest Service said, sure, you just have to build some kind of permanent structure. Get out of town. If it's that easy to build a house on national forest land, I gotta start asking about starting more summer camps. But that's apparently what happened. I mean, I guess they were already paying to lease the land, and if they wanted to use it as a formal camp, they had to build some kind of permanent structure. So they started building this stone ashram. Oh wow, look, I can see the ashram. Oh my gosh, it looks even more amazing than I thought it was gonna be. And what a setting. I mean, if there were ever a spot for an ashram to be perched close enough to the heavens to be heard by the gods, this is it. You know what I mean? That is spectacular. Man, I can't wait to get up in there and see what the view from that window is like. That must be not even $1 million view. That's gotta be like $1 billion view. The downside is, well, I don't know if I'll be able to cross the creek, as you can probably hear, the creek is between me and the ashram. But B, there was another car at the trailhead, and I haven't passed anybody else on the trail, so somebody might be in there. In fact, I read online that there are still people, I think, who follow the teachings of that original couple, because they still have a foundation down in the town of Lone Pine. So I wonder if that was one of their followers and they're sitting up in there meditating right now. Boy, I sure would feel like a jerk bumbling in with my YouTube rig. Hey y'all, what's going on in here? Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Or I guess we won't be crossing any bridges because the bridge got washed out. But you know what I mean. We'll figure it out when we get up there. Gosh, I really do feel like I'm making some kind of pilgrimage. You know, like a religious pilgrim. Hiking all the way up this canyon to visit this sacred shrine. And I guess if there ever were a place that would be sacred to me, it would be something just like this. So I guess I am making a pilgrimage. Uh-oh, look down there through the trees. You can see this creek is not only super fast, but it's pretty wide. I don't know. I mean, I'm really curious to see inside this ashram, but you know what they say. Something about curiosity and a cat, if you know what I mean. Uh-oh. Yikes. 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 This is one gnarly looking water crossing. Oh gosh. Don't they say that most people who die trying to hike the Pacific Crest Trail drown when they're trying to cross creeks? I mean, I can see why they call this the Big Melt. This creek, well, first of all, there should be a bridge over it, and I guess that got torn down by some avalanche. I mean, I guess maybe it was just like a log bridge, but yeah, apparently some avalanche came tearing down this ravine and wiped out the bridge. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I can make it at least halfway across. Yikes, 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 yikes. Okay, I made it halfway across this creek, but I don't know how I'm gonna get across that. I mean, there's so much white water that I can't see the bottom, so that's really not smart to wade into. Plus, look how fast that current is. I don't like my odds. And I don't even know where the trail picks up on the other side. I have no idea where I'm going. Let me just poke around a little bit and see what I can see. Yikes. Yikes. Oh my God, ow, stinging nettle. These things right here, they don't mess around. I gotta be careful. Wow, you can tell there really was some kind of gnarly avalanche here that tore these giant trees down. Look at these trees. I mean, you can see that tree is freshly broken. That thing just came down. But look at this. I climbed up and over that tree, just sort of making my way along all this fallen debris. And the creek is much narrower up here. And it looks like there is a spot I can cross. Okay, I guess I can cross on these logs. Yikes! Oh my God. Okay, I am putting my phone away for this. Oh my God, I actually did it. I crossed the creek. Yikes. All I can say is this ashram better be super freaking cool. Actually, I know this ashram is going to be cool. I already saw it from a distance. I mean, it looked amazing. Okay, now I just have to figure out where the trail is. Because apparently this same avalanche that wiped out the bridge wiped out any indication of a trail. Well, I know the ashram is up that way, so I feel like if I just sort of head this way to eventually stumble onto something resembling a trail. And now I'm sure there must be somebody up in there. I mean, if I was able to make it across that bridge and I'm a wuss, then whoever else hiked up this trail is probably hanging out in that ashram right now thinking, oh, I'll have the whole place to myself. Nobody would be stupid enough to cross that creek. Hello. And what's really amazing is the fact that I'm hiking on snow. Look at that. It's snow, snowpack covered in debris, which I guess is what's keeping it all from melting. There's quite a bit here. Look at this. Oh yeah, it's packed tight. I better explore this ashram fast before this snow melts and fills up that creek even more. In fact, what if it's like Into the Wild? Remember that movie or the book Into the Wild, where the guy went up to Alaska, was camping in that bus, and then he started starving to death, so he tried to hike back, but he couldn't cross the river because the river was too high. Well, what if while I'm up here at this ashram, this creek gets so high, it washes out that bridge and I can't cross back anymore? I better hurry. Wow, now I feel like I really am hiking to some long forgotten abandoned ruins, you know, instead of some ashram that's on all trails, because I can't find the trail. I'm just bushwhacking through the forest, and soon enough I'll come upon it. I hope. Oh wow, look, I can see the buildings. We made it, which is something of a miracle because that was straight bushwhacking. I hope I can find my way back. I guess that's some kind of outbuilding up there. I think the main ashram is ahead. And I feel like I got a whisper. I still think there might be somebody inside. Oh my God, look how amazing this building is. Like I said, I think they built it out of the granite that's all around here. I mean, look at that. I mean, very rustic, but very well executed. I mean, these walls aren't going anywhere. Obviously, it's been here almost 100 years. So the story is they started building this place in 1928, and I think they worked on it for decades until like the early 1950s. I think 1951 they kind of laid off because the wife, Sarah, or Sharifa, was unable to make the trek. She was unable to make the trek up here, so I guess they did have to hike up. Wow, all the more impressive. Okay, are you guys ready to go inside this beautiful abandoned ashram? I already went in and looked around, and there's nobody in there that I could see. So I don't know what that other car at the trailhead was. Maybe somebody tried to cross that creek and slipped and fell. Or maybe they're just so spiritually elevated that I couldn't see them. They're invisible to the naked eye. Anyway, look at this. This is amazing. So we got the grand entrance here, a big door with 2 windows, one on either side. And then we come into this giant room. I mean, I'm just going to do a 360 pan. Windows everywhere, solid walls, giant wood-burning fireplace. And you would need that in the winter up here. Can you imagine how cozy that would be? And then it looked like there's, I mean, kind of like a room there, a room there, some kind of altar there. And then there's another door that leads out here. I'm not sure what's out here. Oh, I guess it's just kind of like a awesome place to sit and, well, I was going to say have a sunset cocktail, but you wouldn't do that at an ashram. You're here to meditate and just drink tea. So you probably, oh my gosh, sit out here first thing in the morning because the sun would come up down that way. So you could kind of sort of see the sunrise. Just, you know, you could watch the sun rise on the face of these rocks, looking up this gorgeous gorge. Or I don't know if that's actually technically a gorge, a canyon, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, this little kind of patio area here, this would be a great place to sit. Okay, let's go inside and check out, well, I wanted to check out that altar, but then I also noticed the attic is really cool. Look at the way they built this roof. It's a perfect star-shaped roof, or I don't know what you would call that. Gosh, I don't know the term for all these things, but it looks like there's dips like gables, or is that gables? No, gables isn't that a gable? I don't know. It's a very complicated roof line. I don't know if we'll be able to get a good vantage point from outside, but it's an impressive fancy roof. And all those wood beams, I mean, I don't know if they lugged those up here by hand or if they milled them up here somehow from the trees in the area. I mean, whew, just a lot of lumber. Okay, well, like I said, I don't want to be in here too long because remember, that creek could rise while I'm gone and wash that bridge away. And golly, I sure don't want to have to spend the night up here. So let's look at this altar. It says, Father, into thy eternal wisdom, all creative love and infinite power, I direct my thoughts. I give my devotion to manifest my energy so that I may know love and serve others. Wow, that seems like a pretty solid sentiment. I can get on board with that. You know, I kept referring to these people as a cult, and they're not a cult. They never hurt anybody. They didn't take advantage of people financially. It wasn't anything like that. They were just, I guess, like spiritualist Hindus back in the 1920s, 1930s. You know how that was a thing? Like people were, you know, everybody had a swami. Well, they were like those classic, for lack of a better word, classic white people that got really into Indian mysticism, I guess, as in India, the subcontinent. And as far as I know, they were just preaching a very peaceful gospel. Oh, look, there's some information here. What does this say? History of the ashrama. Oh, I guess that's what it's formally known as, the ashrama. I'll take this into the light where it's easier to read. But yeah, basically it says what I read online. In 1928, Franklin and Sarah Sharifa Wolf, basically they hiked up these mountains. They camped out here for a while, writing, I guess. It says Sharifa was also a writer. She was writing a Sanskrit dictionary called Devanagari. Okay, so they were both writers. They both wanted to open this school. It does say there were some volunteers who joined in the effort of building the ashrama. All these different people would come up on the weekends. There'd be as many as 30 people camping here. Sharifa helped mix the cement. They all lived in large tents and had communal meals. They worked hard during the day and studied or listened to one of the guys play his violin or guitar around the campfire at night. Oh, wow, that actually sounds super fun. And it says initially they would take burros up the canyon. However, it does say that soon Franklin Wolf began clearing a dirt access road, and eventually the road was adequate so that a tractor and a small flatbed trailer could carry supplies and sometimes people all the way up. Wow, so there was a road that they were able to drive up, but it does say that in 1950 Sharifa could no longer make the trip, so I guess even riding up in on that flatbed trailer got to be too hard for her. And well, I guess that's when they quit work on this place. Golly, why would you quit work on a place like this? I mean, this is absolutely amazing. Well, I guess it says here, Franklin said Sharifa was the main impetus behind this project, and if she couldn't come up here anymore, then he wasn't interested anymore either. And so, yeah, in 1950, they quit working on this thing altogether. And then it says that what's written on this altar over here, apparently that all was carved in 1960 by some random visitor. Wow, some random visitor. That's the kind of graffiti I approve of. You know, somebody wants to come up here and write something about serving others and devoting yourself and manifesting your energy to showing love. I am 100% on board with that. Anyway, it also says that they almost tore this ashram down in 1963 because I guess that's when they declared this the John Muir Wilderness Area. You're not supposed to have any buildings in wilderness areas. So yeah, I guess the Forest Service was going to tear this down, but enough people petitioned them like, oh my gosh, no, you can't tear this down. This needs to be on the National Register of Historic Places. Here's that window that we saw from way down below. Let's see what the view looks like. Holy moly, look at that. It is a $1 trillion view. Those are the White Mountains over there. That is the town of Lone Pine down there, that green spot. And that's the, what do you call that, valley between the White Mountains and the Sierras. Wow, what a view. So there's the trail, you might be able to see, going alongside the, oh gosh, I gotta go all the way back down that. But that's where we were standing, looking up at this window. And to be honest, I didn't think I was gonna make it. I thought that the creek crossing was gonna be too much and that I was gonna have to turn back. And so I was sort of steeling myself and preparing myself for disappointment, okay? Because I'm very un-Buddhist, I'll be honest. I'm very goal-oriented. I wanted to hike up this canyon, and I wanted to go inside this old ashram, and I wanted to make a video showing the inside of the ashram. I sure didn't want to have to turn around because of some big melt, even though I surely would have done so if I had to. But no, I really wanted to get inside here and see this. But I did sort of get myself in the frame of mind to where, okay, well, if I couldn't have crossed the creek, I was going to summon all the Zen Buddhism I could find in every little pore molecule of my body, which I'm not a Buddhist. Try as I might. One time I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. It was a Buddhist silent meditation retreat in the forest up Northern California. You couldn't talk for 10 days. You couldn't even make eye contact with anybody for 10 days. It was gnarly. All you could do was meditate for 10 straight days. And they would come around at 4:30 in the morning, ding, 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 with a little bell and wake you up. Gotta go meditate. Oh, I mean, I lasted the whole 10 days, but I didn't have any kind of great spiritual awakening or any kind of personal breakthroughs, unfortunately. But when I was thinking about possibly not being able to cross the creek and fulfill my goal-oriented mission, I was sort of trying to talk myself into accepting that, you know, the journey is the true reward. You know, they always say that, like, oh, well, it's not the treasure itself, it's the hunt. Well, yes, if you're a Buddhist. But I'm not. I'm just the kind of idiot who risks my neck crossing a raging creek because I can't stand not getting to my goal. Man, this fireplace is amazing. I can only imagine hiking up here if it wasn't so hot, and like backpacking all your gear up and staying up here overnight. Oh my God, it would be amazing. You can have a roaring fire in here. I can actually imagine living up here, to be honest. I mean, yes, it would be very cold. This bare concrete foundation just heated by this fireplace. Like in the wintertime, whew, forget it. But in the spring, summer, and fall, it would be amazing. It would be so peaceful. It would be like being a hermit up here. You know, a lonely hermit perched in this lonely stone ashram way at the top of these mountains in the shadow of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the continental 48 United States. How about that? Okay, well, sadly, I feel like I better just take one more look around this place and then get back down and across that creek. But before I go, I do want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I mean, it's pretty bare in here. There's not much other than some half-baked graffiti. Somebody put looks like a magic mushroom. And then there's, you know, some people carved their name into the wood frame on the door, stuff like that. One thing I do think is interesting is this construction. Like, you can see these boards coming through the concrete. I guess that's the concrete that Sharifa mixed by hand or helped mix. Why do these little bits of wood, they're all poking through at such weird, odd angles here and there? I mean, I don't know what that does structurally, but it's like that on all the walls. You can see little bits of wood poking through all the walls. Huh, interesting. One more look up at that amazing roof. I don't know why, I just think that's so cool. And I guess there would have been boards up there maybe at one time so that you could use the top for storage. Or I don't know, maybe it was always just open like this. Because this does give it a sort of airy, sort of spiritual feel, sort of like being in a cathedral. I think this is it feels very spiritual to me as much as going into some fancy cathedral in France or Italy or someplace like that. Even though this is very rustic and rough hewn, you can totally feel I'm gonna sound corny here, but you can feel the spirit of nature because this thing is just surrounded by it. You know, every window you look at is just jaw-dropping natural beauty. Ugh. Okay, I suppose I should say some kind of little prayer at this altar. You know, it just sort of seems like it might be the thing to do. One simply doesn't hike to an abandoned ashram and not say some kind of prayer. I should probably at least pray for my safe return across that creek. Oh, that was nice. I said a few little prayers in my head, words of encouragement to myself. You know, I've been feeling kind of bummed out lately. I'm trying to get my spark back, and by golly, this is exactly the kind of thing that will put the spark back in anyone. Woohoo! Okay, let's go face that bridge. Woo! Made it back across the creek. It hadn't risen. I think I even already got back on the trail. Oh, what a relief. I'm not gonna lie. That creek crossing had me feeling more than a little bit like my arch nemesis, Wonderhussy. And I refuse to be a Wonderhussy. So I'm glad I pushed myself within reasonable limits and, you know, made it across that creek. I know it's a fine line between bravery and foolishness, but it's also just one letter's difference between Wonderhussy and wonderhussie. Either way, I'm super glad I got to see inside that ashram. Just reminded me though, I forgot to look in that outbuilding. Remember when we were first approaching, there was that outbuilding? That's probably where that person whose car I saw at the trailhead is. There's probably something super amazing in that outbuilding, and now I'll never know what it is. I guess that's what I get for being such a type A person, focused on my goal. If I'd been more zen about it, maybe I would have found the real treasure.